welcome to episode 23 of the Indie Author Mindset podcast with me, Adam Croft. We've got a lot to get through today, so I'll rattle on with it pretty quickly in just a moment. We're going to be looking at the current state of the book trade and what this means for indies. Yet again, it does change from week to week. It's definitely a changeable news story, so we'll keep up to date with that. I'm going to be talking as well about some things that have popped up in the Indie Author Mindset Facebook group this week. We're going to be talking about Ingram Spark and free ISBNs, whether you should go for that. And there's going to be an Indie Author Mindset Ninja tip as well that is back again this week. Before I get on though, I should let you know that this podcast is gratefully sponsored by Ingram Spark, the award-winning indie publishing platform that offers authors like you a way to get your paperbacks and hardbacks into over 40,000 bookstores and libraries worldwide. Let Ingram Spark take care of the details so that you can focus on what you do best, which is writing. Get started today at IngramSpark.com. Now, they do have a code up at the moment so that you can get free title setup and revisions with Ingram Spark until May the 31st. Use the code IngramSpark2020 for that. Now, Ingram did send out an email recently pointing out that their US distribution times have been delayed as a result of the coronavirus. They're advising at the moment that if you are sending out orders in the United States, paperbacks are estimated to print within 5 to 7 business days at the moment, as opposed to next day. Hardcover books are estimated in 10 to 12 business days, and rush and express orders are temporarily unavailable in the United States because of the distribution issues that coronavirus is causing. Rachel Cook wrote in The Guardian this week on very much those things, the problems that coronavirus is causing for the book industry. Helpfully, actually, 40% of people said that books had aided them in getting through the lockdown. That's the good news. People are turning to books. They are enjoying that escapism. Bookshops, which are still able to function by post and online, according to this article in The Guardian, are making an average of 18% of their normal sales. These are the bookshops that are still able to function. They are fulfilling their orders online or through post. They're 82% down. Well, the maths won't quite work out like that, but they're currently at 18% of their normal sales. Some traditional publishers have reported that their sales are down by 60%, which is enormous in a wing of the industry which has had some issues for a little while anyway. The good news for us, I guess, in that is that indie sales are generally up. That's something I mentioned last week on the podcast. I mentioned that my March sales were up 154% on February. My profit was up by 223%, and it all went up again in April, up 40 to 45% as an increase on March. Many indie authors are seeing similar sales trajectories, so that's the good news. I guess it's another swing towards the indie arm of the industry. Of course, it's not good that traditional bookshops are having to suffer through this and that the traditional publishers are suffering through this. It's not an us or them thing. We are definitely all in this together, so hopefully things can increase for them too soon and can improve. I've been speaking to a few people this week. It seems that a lot of traditional publishers are pushing back their big book releases to the autumn or even into next year, into 2021. My advice, based on the conversations I've been having with them, is to get your books out before September, if you can. I've had words from a trad pub insider that September to December this year is going to be an absolute bloodbath, because that's when everyone's putting their big releases back to. They've got to set a date of some point, of some sort, and they're hoping that things will be back to normal by then. Either way, they're going for it because the Christmas rush is going to be there, so the books are going to be bought, whether they're bought online or in shops. So September to December this year is probably going to be a bloodbath in terms of releasing new books. So it might be best as an indie, unless you've got a big advertising budget and you're willing to cut through that, it would be my advice to probably get your books out as quickly as possible, certainly before September. The Guardian article also says that online selling, interestingly, is becoming more plural. And by that they mean that online booksellers are seeing huge sales increases above and beyond those that are being seen at Amazon, which is good. It's yet another sign that there's a lot more to the book world than just Amazon, and that their dominance may be slipping in this regard too, in terms of selling paperbacks online and not just ebooks. So it's very interesting. Things are definitely opening up. Things are definitely changing. There are these aspects of the industry that I've been banging about on for years, and that lots of people have been talking about, saying that they need to change. Maybe this is change being forced upon them. Maybe this is where things start to move in the right direction for once and for all. Ingram Spark this week, to mention them again, have announced that they've introduced free ISBNs when you distribute your paperback through them. Curiously, their announcement of this linked to an article which explicitly warned against using free ISBNs, which happens to also be my advice. As much as I love Ingram Spark, I wouldn't recommend using free ISBNs from anybody. As always, you should retain complete control and ownership. ISBNs are expensive in some countries, and I say that as a resident of the UK, where ISBNs are very expensive. They are not an expense. This is a business investment, and if you are an Indie Author Mindset patron through our Patreon program, you will have seen the article exclusive to patrons in your dashboard this week, which went into some more detail about that, about how expenses and investments are very different things, and you should certainly be looking at investments and not thinking of them simply as money spent, because that's not quite how it works. In the Indie Author Mindset Facebook group this week, A.B. Martin asked, does anyone have recent experience of one of their books being in the Prime reading programme? My first in series has just been offered a place, and I'm wondering whether it's worth committing the book for 90 days. There are 2 more books in the series, with a 4th coming in the autumn, and I'm in KU. Many thanks. My simple advice here is... this is something I've done a few times. I've been in the Prime reading programme a few times. Sometimes, and this was very, very common in the early days of it, I understand not so much now, they offer a cash payment up front. And it can be pretty juicy, between $500 and $2,000 to put you in this programme. If that is offered, I would say take it. Generally speaking, your book gets discounted for a month or so. They say that they're aiming to give it more marketing power and to sell more copies. In my experience, that's never actually happened. The sales have never actually increased in all of the ones that I've done. Sometimes have even decreased. But if there's a cash payment on the table, in order to go into this, that can more than offset it, to say the least. So the free money helps, but if that's not on the table, my advice, is to give it a swerve. Also in the group this week, Jonathan Dunsky asked about pricing. This is something that pops up every now and again. Has anyone tried, he asks, to price their ebooks much higher than most indies? Let's say $6.99 to $9.99. If so, what were the results? My advice on this tends to stay the same. It is that you should keep trying to increase your prices, see what happens. Generally speaking, when I put mine up, my sales don't tend to really drop at all, and any drop that does happen in terms of pure numbers is usually more than offset by an increase in royalties. Now might not necessarily be the time to think about putting your prices up when a lot of people are struggling with money. They're worried about their jobs, they're worried about their futures and their incomes. here in the UK as well. And in fact, wherever you are in the world, any UK ebook sales, you're now getting an extra 20% royalty on as well, because they no longer attract VAT. So I wouldn't say now is necessarily the time to do it. But generally speaking, my advice is to try and avoid this race to the bottom, this idea that books should be 99 cents or they should be free. Increase your books every now and again, increase the prices and see what happens. You're an indie, you've got complete flexibility. If it doesn't work out, you can put them back down again in a couple of days. Cherie Brio also asked in the group this week, for anyone who runs BookBub ads, do you always target yourself if you're targeting authors? Asking for a friend, she says, with a winky face. Yes, absolutely is my advice. There was some conflicting advice in this thread. There was a lot of back and forth about it, but my advice is absolutely yes. This is one of the biggest benefits you can get from advertising and from marketing, is targeting yourself, for a couple of reasons. First of all, defensive advertising, defensive marketing. If you're advertising to your own name on AMS, on BookBub, on Facebook, if you're lucky enough to have that size of audience, if you are J.K. Rowling, then you are essentially getting your books there when people are searching for your name, rather than them searching for your name and somebody else's books coming up and them going and buying them. Of course, there's no such thing as competition in this industry, but still, you would rather they're buying your books if you're the one that they're searching for, of course. So that's one aspect to it. And I'd also say that it's especially handy when you're running a discount, or if you're trying to sell your backlist. Pre-orders, it's wonderful to target yourself, especially using BookBub ads, and for general nudges, for getting rid of your backlist. Never, ever assume that your readers have read everything of yours. We always do this as authors, and it's a massive mistake. I get emails all the time from readers saying they've read all of my books, and then I find out that there are whole series of mine that they've not even discovered yet. Don't assume that everybody who reads your books has read them all. Keep advertising to your existing readers, keep your name there in front of them, and keep selling that backlist. So whichever way you look at it, yes, absolutely do target yourself as an author target, with BookBub ads with AMS. You'll normally find they get the best click-through rates as well. They get the best conversion rates for obvious reasons, and that's going to help in lots of different ways on those advertising platforms. This week, off the back of another question that was in the Indie Author Mindset Facebook group about Kindle Unlimited, I've got for you the Indie Author Mindset Ninja Tip. You can tell I'm recording this on a Sunday night, can't you? In response to a question by David Lyons, who asked about coming out of Kindle Unlimited, the best way to do it in terms of whether he waits until they've all expired or whether he waits until certain ones have finished their enrolment period. You don't need to wait. This goes for everybody. If you want to come out of Kindle Unlimited, out of KDP Select, all you need to do is bring up your KDP dashboard, contact Amazon KDP support and ask them. And you will normally be free within hours, pretty much always the same day. If not the next day, they'll get back to you. They'll let you know they've ended your KDP Select enrolment period, and you are now free to go wide on all of those other vendors. So there's no need to wait for enrolment periods to end. There's no need to believe this hype about 90-day re-enrollment periods. Doesn't matter. It's not official Amazon policy, but every single time I've known anybody ask, they've always let them out straight away, and it's pretty common knowledge that they will. If you've enjoyed the podcast this week and any other week, you can always go back and listen to the old episodes. And if you get value from the Indie Author Mindset community, please do consider showing your support by joining the Indie Author Mindset Patreon program. There are lots and lots of benefits to being a patron, and it starts from just $2. It helps keep this podcast and the Indie Author Mindset project running. So if you want to help support us and get access to lots of fantastic benefits which aren't available anywhere else, head over to patreon.com/Indie Author Mindset or check out the link in the show notes. And as always, if you want to get in touch with me, if you've got anything you want me to focus on in the podcast in future episodes, just email podcast@indieauthormindset.com. Catch me on Twitter at IAMindset, which is the new Twitter account for the Indie Author Mindset. I'm on Twitter at AdamCroftBooks. And of course, I'm on Facebook in the Indie Author Mindset Facebook group. I'm going to go to sleep now because it's late on a Sunday night. I'm very tired, and I'll be back next week with another episode. Until then, stay safe and do take care. This episode of the Indie Author Mindset podcast was presented by me, Adam Croft. The Indie Author Mindset podcast is sponsored by Ingram Spark, helping you get your book into over 40,000 bookstores and libraries worldwide. Get started today at IngramSpark.com. The theme music for this podcast is by the Caesareans. Don't forget you can claim 50% off any Indie Author Mindset course by entering the promo code podcast at the checkout. Links are in the show notes. For more great tips and guidance, join the Indie Author Mindset group on Facebook.